Hello, and welcome to our communication audit. This is for CMST 330, Organizational Communication. My name is Christina Polk.
And my name is Sarah Pollen.
Okay, so let's go over the agenda for our communication audit for this presentation. First, we will introduce you to the organization we chose. Then we will discuss theoretical considerations that we took into consideration as we examined the organization and analyzed the data. We will talk about the methodology used for collecting data, the data results, the limitations of the data. We will provide some recommendations that we are giving the organization for communication and the conclusion of our communication audit. And then finally, we will wrap up with some key insights of myself and Ms. Pollen. So the organization that we chose for the communication audit was Pierce College, Fort Steilacoom, and specifically the HR department. Pierce College is a community college. It is fully accredited. They offer affordable education and are committed to helping students achieve their educational and career goals. The mission of the college, their official mission statement, is create quality education for a diverse community of learners to thrive in an evolving world. And the values stated on the website includes learning, integrity, respect, accountability, and sustainability. And the reason I point out the mission and values of the college is that it really points to their culture, the culture at the college. And the culture at Pierce College, I would say, is summed up by promoting a learning environment that is safe, inclusive, and equitable. Culture is extremely important to every organization. It is the personality of the business, and studies have shown that it directly impacts organizational health and performance, and it also impacts how business is conducted every day and also the experiences of employees. What's interesting also about culture is that many subcultures or microcultures can emerge out of the main culture of the organization. So each department may have a slightly different culture. Even different sections within the department may have slightly different cultures. Okay, so now let's discuss some of the theoretical considerations that we took into account when collecting the data, observing the organization, and analyzing the data. First, let's talk about systems theory. This is the idea that everything is connected and one thing impacts the other. So it's also the idea that decisions and actions made by one person or by one department will impact the entire system. Next, let's talk about the human resources perspective, and this is the theory that encourages employees to participate in decision making. Communication is encouraged. And organizations with a human perspective theory really embrace the differences of its employees and what they contribute to the organization. Next is McGregor's Theory Y, and leaders that use the Theory Y model typically have the assumption that employees are self-motivated and want responsibility. So they give them more time to work by themselves and to make more decisions. Organizational control and bureaucracy theory is the idea that organizations have rules, a hierarchy of authority, division of labor, and formal communication. And this will differ from organization to organization. It is largely dependent on its culture and also its structure, whether it's tall or flat, will play a factor in that. Next is social identity theory. And this is the idea that people tend to favor the group that they belong to. But this can lead to in-group favoritism, and this can lead to an us versus them mentality, and that can have a negative impact on the culture and just how people communicate. Lastly, organizational culture theory is the idea that culture is manifested through artifacts, values, and underlying assumptions. Artifacts are the highly visible things that you can see, such as a company's dress code, annual reports, employee handbook, statements of philosophy. Values and underlying assumptions are more unseen and harder to identify, and they typically include things like ideologies, norms, perceptions, and thought processes. Okay, now let's discuss the methodologies used for our communication audit and for collecting data. First, the basis of our research was grounded theory. And grounded theory involves collecting and analyzing qualitative data, which is non-numerical data, and it often refers back to relevant literature when analyzing the data. So for this communication audit, we referred a lot to the course text for CMST 330. And qualitative data offers very rich and detailed information. Next, we also use the ethnographic approach. And this involves observing people as they interact in social settings. For instance, what they do, what they say to people, and it is ideal for observing groups of people and cultures. To gather our data, we used observations and interviews. For the interviews, our target group were employees in the HR department. We had access to these individuals because Ms. Paulin was completing her internship for the BAS program. We followed interview protocols and followed a semi-structured interview process. And that gave us the flexibility that we needed to let people guide the conversation the way they wanted it to go. Our questions were designed to guide the conversation, but let people just share as much as they wanted to about their experiences. Other interview protocols included starting each interview with icebreaker questions. The goal of that was to make people feel comfortable, as comfortable as possible, so that they hopefully felt more willing to share and be more open about their experiences. We asked a lot of open-ended questions instead of yes or no questions, just to get even more information. We used a script to keep us on track. And lastly, our main focus was to listen more than anything, because it's hard to gather information if you're always talking. So we took time to listen.
Next, we are going to discuss the data results. We interviewed a few people in the HR department. One of the employees that we interviewed is fairly new. She works at the front counter, and she mainly controls the electronic filing system that they're trying to set up. When discussing stuff with the employee, she talked about a couple of concerns with the electronic filing system. She stated that some of the names on the files are not the same, they're different from the other ones. She stated that it's impossible to find files on employees. She said that nobody told her how to set up the files, and she didn't even know what should be put in the files. There was literally no instructions on how to set up any file. Pierce College tends to use the theory Y and the laissez-faire decision making. And this is where employees, they would come up with their own ways on how to set up the files. Essentially, they're, making their own decisions on the procedures for this. However, this hasn't worked for these employees. It confuses them and causes this section to be disorganized. The next employee that we interviewed is a recruiter, and she's a veteran. She spent most of her life in the military, so she's used to lots of structure, lots of policies and procedures. And so this is a different environment than Pierce College. Pierce College doesn't have a lot of policies or structure. They use the theory Y, which is where employees make their own decisions. And this has caused her to be very confused. She's confused about whether or not she's doing her job correctly. She also has challenges with communication. She's had issues with being too direct with other employees. This theory and structure is not compatible with this specific employee. The next employee that we interviewed is a HR generalist. They run the budget, and they voiced some concerns about inaccuracies with the budget. The inaccuracies are due to invoices not being sent to them. The current policy for invoices is that invoices be sent to finance instead of the HR generalist as well. The issue with this is that finance is backed up, and so it's usually like a couple months before the HR generalist receives the reports on the invoices that were sent in. So this causes the budget to be inaccurate for months, which causes issues with their funding. This employee has voiced these concerns with the managers. However, it still seems that nothing has been resolved in this situation. At this point, the employee has stopped communicating with anybody about the situation and has given up on the issue with the budget. After analyzing the results of the data, we found that there seemed to be a lack of structure. Structure in every section. The veteran struggles with this. She is confused. Also, that there is no policies or procedures. There's no policies and procedures on how to set up electronic files, which has caused disorganization. There's no policies or procedures on how to run a committee meeting, which causes communication issues and disorganization. Employees have no structure. They're tasked with making their own decisions, even though they are not even sure how to make these decisions. They don't know how to do these jobs. Some of them are new. Another theme that we found that reoccurred was a culture conflict. The veteran is having issues with communicating with other employees. She had that run-in with the other employee and got in trouble for being herself and communicating the way that she does. And this has caused her to just completely stop communicating with anybody.